The summer offensive of Russian forces in Ukraine has concluded with only limited tactical gains, while the Ukrainian armed forces counteroffensive has yet to begin. This assessment comes from former FSB officer Igor Strelkov-Gherkin, currently serving a prison sentence in Russia, who shared his views on his Telegram channel. Gherkin believes Ukrainian troops are obliged to strike now, at a moment when the Russian advance has run out of steam, their defensive readiness is uneven, and their reserves have melted away, or are entirely depleted. I'm still willing to bet 3-1 that Ukraine's counteroffensive will begin soon, and it's unlikely they will wait until September, he wrote. I still see the southern, Crimean, Zaporizhia axis as the most probable and dangerous direction for their strike. But, of course, they could choose another sector if they think it will yield at least a small victory. He added that the ongoing war of attrition poses a stark choice for the Kremlin. Either abandon the peacetime economy and commit fully to a war effort until complete victory, or risk the conflict being won alternatively, and likely not by Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to inflict damage in Crimea ahead of the anticipated counterattack. Soldiers from the HUR's Ghost unit recently struck one of Russia's most valuable radar stations, the 98L6 Yenisei, in occupied Crimea. According to her, this rare and costly system is part of the S-500 Prometheus air defense complex and can also be used with S-400 Triumph systems. The destruction of the Yenisei is a significant blow to the air defense capabilities of the Russian occupiers in Crimea. The fight continues, the agency stated. Separately, Ukraine's security service reported on Monday that it destroyed one Russian Su-30 fighter jet and damaged 4 other military aircraft during an overnight drone strike on Crimea. The attack targeted a military aviation depot, completely destroying the Su-30, damaging another, and also damaging 3 Su-24 bomber aircraft. After 42 months of grueling combat in Ukraine, Russia's stocks of modern armored vehicles have dwindled to critically low levels. So low, in fact, that Russian technicians are now pulling derelict tanks out of long-term storage, machines long deemed unfit for combat. Recent satellite imagery of Urovanzavod, the massive Russian tank plant in Nizhny Tagil, 1,600 kilometers from Ukraine, reveals exactly what open-source analyst Jompy had been expecting since Russian tank losses surpassed 4,000 earlier this year, according to Euromaidan Press. That figure is roughly equal to the number of tanks Russia had in frontline service before launching its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Just like that, there are a lot of likely T-72s parked in the yards outside UVZ now, Jompy noted, using the abbreviation for Urovanzavod. Tanks appearing outside the plant typically mean they're awaiting refurbishment, and possibly upgrades, before being sent to frontline regiments, including those in Ukraine. The 46-ton, 3-person T-72A isn't the oldest variant of the T-72 family, but it's close. Only the original T-72, Ural, introduced in the early 1970s, predates it. While Soviet industry built thousands of both Urals and T-72s, they were succeeded in the 1980s by the far more capable T-72B, which featured a stabilized 125mm gun, thicker armor, and a more powerful engine. For decades, the older T-72s sat idle at storage sites like the 349th Tank Storage Base in Russia's Topchikinsky district, 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine. Good for spare parts but not much else. That changed when Ukrainian mines, artillery, missiles, and drones decimated entire generations of Russia's more modern tanks. With Urovanzavod producing only around 300 of the latest T-90M tanks each year, the Kremlin has been forced to dip deep into its reserves of aging T-72s. Earlier this year, dozens of 40-year-old T-72Bs began arriving at the plant, but with only a few hundred in storage, those stocks are already running low. Roughly 1,000 T-72 Urals and T-72s remain. As recently as last summer, another open-source analyst, Hi Mars, predicted that the first-generation T-72s wouldn't be pressed into service until Russia had exhausted slightly newer T-80Bs, T-80BVs, and T-72Bs. I expect at some point they will have to create an upgrade program for these tanks, he wrote of the T-72s, calling such a move a sign that there aren't many T-72B or T-80B BVs left in storage. That sign has now appeared. The supply of T-72Bs and other 1980s vintage tanks is nearly gone. The T-72 is our next in line for combat duty, deployed on those increasingly rare occasions when Russia dares to use tanks along Ukraine's drone-patrolled front lines, Euromaidan press reports. Exactly how many of the roughly 1,000 early-model T-72s can be made operational after decades of open-air storage remains uncertain. Equally unclear is how much the Kremlin is willing to invest in refurbishing them. The T-72s lack key features of modern armor, most notably stabilized main guns that can fire accurately while on the move. Fighters of the 425th Skala Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces have taken 32 Russian soldiers prisoner in one of the settlements. Realizing that further resistance was pointless, the occupiers laid down their arms and surrendered. The captives claimed they had been forcibly conscripted into the Russian army and expressed regret over their involvement. They also thanked the Ukrainian soldiers for sparing their lives and treating them humanely.
Я из 8 человек дошел до точки только один. Я видел, как моих друзей разрывало на куски. Они до сих пор мне снятся.
Самое страшное – это смерть, не вернуться домой, не увидеть маму, не увидеть сына.
Я пошел в военкомат подписывать контракт с целью вернуть водительское удостоверение. Сейчас думаю, что лучше бы почтальоном служил, на велосипеде ездил.
Меня на протяжении недели пытали, чтобы я подписал контракт. В это время я находился в СИЗО.
Когда мы сдались в плен, мы не пожалели ни на секунду, то, что мы сделали этот выбор.
Нам говорили за вас, то, что, блядь, вы такие все хуёвые, блядь, там. Как, ну еще я даже не знаю. А вот увидел все своими глазами, по-другому стало.
Из 20 человек дошло, может быть, человек 5, ну пусть 10 даже, пусть даже 10, и те 300-е.
Меня обманули. Короче, наебали и объебали. Поедешь, Валера, на стройку. Ну, на стройку так на стройку. И вот такая у меня стройка.
Выжил вообще не знаю сколько. Все без вести пропавшие.
Страшно видеть, как ребята погибают мучительной смертью из-за какого-то придурка в Кремле.
За месяц от нашей роты осталось 2 человека.
Спасибо, ВСУ, 425